Hi, this is Don McAllister and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. Continuing on from our first look at Bitcoin last week, in this week's episode I'm going to take a further look at this hot topic. If you haven't managed to see last week's episode, I'd strongly recommend that you do so before viewing this episode. Last week gave you some background on just what Bitcoin is and using various wallets and services to both acquire and store Bitcoin. In this episode, I'm going to cover a slightly different but a cheaper way of acquiring Bitcoin from Coinbase, moving Bitcoins to a Trezor device for added security, and tracking your Bitcoin value online.